The phone call came at 7:03 p.m. Shattering the quiet of my Tuesday evening like a brick through a window. "You're not family anymore," my mother's voice hissed through the receiver, each word a blade slicing through 35 years of love, arguments, and shared history. I stood frozen in my living room, the phone pressed to my ear, as the world I'd known crumbled into silence. "My name is Emily Harper, and I've always believed family was an unbreakable bond, forged through years of laughter over Thanksgiving dinners and tears during late-night confessions." But that night, as my mother's words echoed in my mind, I realized some bonds could fracture in an instant. My husband, David, watched me from the couch, his brow furrowed, sensing the storm brewing inside me. I didn't cry, not yet. Instead, a fire sparked in my chest, a mix of betrayal and determination that would redefine everything. The trouble started 3 months earlier, at a family reunion in our small Ohio town. My mother, Catherine, had always been the matriarch, her sharp tongue and iron will holding our family together, or so I thought. She'd raised me and my younger brother, Jake, single-handedly after Dad left when I was 10. Her strength was legendary, but so was her stubbornness. At the reunion, Jake, now 30, announced he was moving to Seattle for a tech job, a decision Mom took as a personal betrayal. "You're abandoning us," she'd snapped, her voice carrying over the picnic tables. Jake, ever the peacemaker, tried to explain, but Mom wouldn't hear it. I stepped in, defending his choice, arguing that he deserved to chase his dreams. That was my first mistake. Mom's anger simmered for weeks, but I didn't realize how deeply it had taken root until she called me that evening. "You've always taken his side," she spat. "You're just like your father, selfish, disloyal. You're no daughter of mine." The words stung worse than any slap, and the click of her hanging up felt like a door slamming shut. David crossed the room, his warm hand on my shoulder, but I barely felt it. My mother had just disowned me, and I had no idea why her resentment had turned so viciously on me. I sank onto the couch, replaying the reunion in my mind. Jake's excitement about Seattle had been infectious. He'd talked about coding, startups, and a fresh start. I'd been proud of him, but Mom saw it as abandonment. She'd always clung to the idea of family staying close, physically and emotionally. My defense of Jake must have felt like a betrayal to her. But to disown me, that was a leap I couldn't comprehend. David poured me a glass of wine, his voice gentle. "She's hurting, Em. She doesn't mean it." But I wasn't so sure. The next morning, I called Jake. He answered on the second ring, his voice bright until he heard mine. "What's wrong?" he asked, sensing my distress. I told him everything, Mom's words, her venom, the finality in her tone. Jake was silent for a long moment before muttering, "She's been off lately." "She didn't tell you, did she?" My stomach dropped. "Tell me what?" Jake hesitated, then revealed that Mom had been struggling with her health, early signs of dementia. The doctor had warned. She'd refused to tell me, claiming I'd take Jake's side and push her into a care facility. The revelation hit like a punch. My mother wasn't just angry. She was scared, lashing out as her world slipped away. I spent the day wrestling with my emotions. Part of me wanted to scream at her for her cruelty, but another part ached for the woman who'd braided my hair and taught me to drive. David urged me to reach out, but I wasn't ready. Instead, I dug into old photo albums, searching for clues to what had gone wrong. Pictures of Mom smiling at my graduation, of us baking Christmas cookies, felt like relics from another life. By evening, I made a decision. I wouldn't let her words define our story. I'd fight for our family, not with anger, but with something stronger: truth and love. That night, I wrote her a letter. Not an email, not a text, but a real letter, poured onto paper with ink and tears. I wrote about our memories, her strength, and my love for her. Despite her words, I acknowledged her fear, her pain, and promised I'd never stop being her daughter. "You can push me away," I wrote, "but I'm not going anywhere." I mailed it the next morning, my heart pounding with hope and dread. It was the first step in a plan I didn't fully understand yet. But I knew one thing: I wasn't giving up on her. Days passed without a response to my letter, each one heavier than the last. I checked the mailbox obsessively, hoping for a reply, even a single line from Mom acknowledging my words. Nothing came. David tried to keep my spirits up, cooking my favorite pasta and distracting me with bad action movies. But the silence from Mom gnawed at me. I began to wonder if I'd miscalculated, if my letter had only deepened her resolve to cut me out. Meanwhile, Jake called daily, guilt lacing his voice. "I should have told you about her health sooner," he said, his words thick with regret. I reassured him it wasn't his fault, but I could tell he felt responsible for the rift. He offered to fly back from Seattle, but I told him to stay put. This was between Mom and me now. Still, his updates about her snippets from neighbors who saw her at the grocery store, looking frilier than usual, kept me tethered to her world, even from a distance. I decided to visit her. It was a risky move, showing up unannounced after her harsh words. But I couldn't let the silence fester. On Saturday morning, David and I drove the 2 hours to her house in our old hometown. The familiar streets felt foreign now, each landmark a diner. The park where I'd learned to ride a bike tinged with the weight of her rejection. When we pulled into her driveway, my hands trembled on the steering wheel. Her house, once a haven of warmth, looked smaller, its paint peeling like the edges of our relationship. I knocked, half expecting her to slam the door in my face. Instead, she opened it slowly, her gray eyes narrowing as they met mine. "What do you want, Emily?" Her voice was cold, but I caught a flicker of something: fear, maybe, or exhaustion. I took a deep breath, my rehearsed words tumbling out. "I'm here because you're my mom, and I love you. We need to talk." She hesitated, then stepped aside, letting us in. It wasn't an invitation, but it was a start. The living room smelled of lavender and dust, a mix of Mom's favorite candles and neglect. She sat stiffly in her armchair, her hands folded tightly in her lap. David stayed by the door, giving us space. I started gently, asking about her health, but she cut me off. "Don't pretend you care now," she snapped. "You sided with Jake, just like always." Her accusation stung, but I pressed on, keeping my voice steady. "I'm not choosing sides, Mom. I'm trying to understand you." She scoffed, but I saw her hands tremble. I told her about the letter, how I'd poured my heart into it, hoping she'd read it. Her eyes darted to a side table, where I spotted the envelope, unopened. My heart sank, but I didn't push. Instead, I shared a memory: our trip to the lake when I was 12, how she taught me to skip stones. "You were my hero that day," I said, my voice cracking. "You still are?" For a moment, her face softened, but then the wall went back up. "You don't understand," she muttered, looking away. I pressed gently, asking about her doctor visits, her fears. She resisted, but I kept my tone calm, loving, refusing to match her anger. Finally, she admitted she'd been scared since the dementia diagnosis, terrified of losing control, of becoming a burden. "I thought pushing you away would be easier," she whispered, tears brimming. It was the first crack in her armor, and I seized it, reaching for her hand. She didn't pull away. David suggested we stay for dinner, and to my surprise, Mom agreed. As we cooked together her famous meatloaf, my clumsy attempt at mashed potatoes, I felt a flicker of the old warmth. We didn't solve everything that night, but we talked, really talked, for the first time in months. She admitted she hadn't meant her words over the phone, that her fear had twisted her love into anger. I promised to be there, no matter what, and for the first time, I saw hope in her eyes. As we drove home, David squeezed my hand. "You did good, Em." I wasn't sure yet. But I felt lighter, like I'd reclaimed a piece of my family. The fight wasn't over, but I'd taken the first real step toward healing. The drive home from Mom's house left me with a fragile hope, like holding a cracked glass that could shatter with one wrong move. I'd seen a glimpse of the mother I loved, but her admission about her fear of dementia lingered, heavy and unresolved. Over the next week, I called her daily, leaving voicemails when she didn't answer. Most went unreturned, but on Thursday, she picked up, her voice softer. "I read your letter," she said, and my heart leapt. She didn't apologize, but she asked about my day, a small gesture that felt like a lifeline. I started researching dementia, poring over articles and forums, trying to understand what she was facing. The more I learned, the more my anger faded, replaced by a deep ache for her. She wasn't just pushing me away. She was grappling with a future that terrified her. I shared what I found with David, who suggested we consult a specialist. "Maybe if she sees we're in this together, she'll open up," he said. I nodded. But doubt not at me. Mom had always been fiercely independent, and convincing her to accept help would be a battle. I decided to involve Jake. I called him, explaining our visit and Mom's confession. He was stunned, guilt washing over him again. "I should have stayed closer," he said, but I cut him off. "This isn't about blame. It's about helping her now." We brainstormed ways to support her without making her feel powerless. Jake suggested video calls to stay connected from Seattle, and I proposed finding a local support group for her. It felt like a plan, but I knew Mom's stubbornness would test us. A week later, I returned to her house, this time alone. David had work, and I wanted Mom to feel safe, not ganged up on. She greeted me with a cautious smile, a marked improvement from last time. We sat at her kitchen table, sipping tea, and I brought up the idea of a support group. Her face hardened instantly. "I'm not some charity case," she snapped, but I held my ground, keeping my voice gentle. "It's not about weakness, Mom. It's about strength facing this with people who understand." She didn't agree, but she didn't shut me down either. I shifted tactics, focusing on memories again. I pulled out my phone, showing her photos from Jake's high school graduation, where she'd beamed with pride. "You fought for us back then," I said. "Let us fight for you now." Her eyes glistened, and she nodded, a small concession. We spent the afternoon sorting through old keepsakes, laughing over Jake's terrible poetry phase. It wasn't a fix, but it was progress, moments of connection that reminded us both of what we stood to lose. That evening, I called a neurologist recommended by a friend. Dr. Ellis was kind but direct, explaining that early intervention could slow Mom's symptoms. She suggested a family meeting to discuss care options, and I agreed, though I dreaded broaching it with Mom. When I called Jake to update him, he offered to fly in for the meeting. "I need to be there," he said, and I felt a surge of gratitude. For the first time, I wasn't carrying this alone. The next day, I found a local dementia support group and emailed the organizer, asking about meetings. They sent back a schedule, and I printed it, planning to slip it into a conversation with Mom later. I also started a journal, writing down our interactions, her moods, anything that might help Dr. Ellis. It felt like detective work, piecing together the puzzle of my mother's mind. David noticed my intensity and pulled me into a hug. "You're doing everything you can," he said. "She's lucky to have you." I wanted to believe him, but fear whispered that it might not be enough. By the end of the week, Mom called me a rare move. "I'm not ready for groups," she said, her voice shaky but firm. "But I'll see a doctor. For you." It was a victory, small but seismic. I thanked her, tears spilling over, and promised to be with her every step. As I hung up, I felt the weight of her words from that first call, "You're not family anymore," fading, replaced by a fragile new beginning. We weren't healed, but we were fighting, together. The neurologist's office was sterile, all white walls and antiseptic scent. But Dr. Ellis's warm smile softened the edges. Mom sat beside me, her hands fidgeting with the strap of her purse, while Jake, fresh off his flight from Seattle, stood by the window, his presence a quiet reassurance. We'd convinced Mom for this appointment, a miracle in itself, but her guarded expression told me she was here out of obligation, not trust. Dr. Ellis reviewed Mom's records, her tone calm as she explained the stages of dementia, the medications that might help, and the importance of routine. Mom listened, her lips pressed tight, but I saw her grip loosen slightly when Dr. Ellis said, "You're not alone in this, Catherine." Back at Mom's house, we sat around her dining table, the air thick with unspoken questions. Jake broke the silence, asking Mom what she wanted, how she saw her future. She hesitated, then admitted she feared losing herself, her memories, her independence. "I don't want to be a burden," she said, her voice breaking. I reached for her hand, promising we'd find a way to balance her autonomy with support. Jake suggested hiring a part-time caregiver, someone to help with small tasks. And to my surprise, Mom didn't dismiss it outright. "I'll think about it," she said, and I felt a spark of hope. Over the next few days, I coordinated with Dr. Ellis to start Mom on a medication regimen, while Jake researched caregivers in the area. We found a woman named Sarah, a nurse with a gentle demeanor who specialized in dementia care. When I pitched the idea to Mom, she resisted, insisting she could manage alone. But I'd anticipated this and invited Sarah for a casual visit, framing it as a neighborly chat. Sarah's warmth disarmed Mom, and by the end of the afternoon, they were swapping recipes. Mom didn't agree to anything yet, but she smiled a real, unguarded smile for the first time in weeks. Meanwhile, I joined the local dementia support group myself, attending a meeting to better understand Mom's world. The stories I heard of love, loss, and resilience echoed my own fears and hopes. One woman, Clara, shared how she'd rebuilt her relationship with her father after years of estrangement. "It's not about fixing everything," she said. "It's about showing up." Her words stuck with me, fueling my resolve to keep showing up for Mom, no matter how hard she pushed back. Back home, David and I started small rituals to keep Mom connected. We set up weekly video calls with Jake, where Mom would recount old stories, her face lighting up as she recalled teaching us to dance in the living room. These moments felt like stitching together the frayed edges of our family. But there were setbacks too. One night, Mom called me in a panic, convinced she'd lost her wedding ring, a keepsake from my father. I drove over, finding it on her nightstand. But her distress lingered, a reminder of how fragile her world was becoming. I began visiting more often, bringing photo albums or baking supplies to recreate our old traditions. One afternoon, as we made her famous apple pie, she opened up about Dad's leaving, something she rarely discussed. "I was so angry," she said, her hands still in the dough. "I thought pushing you away would protect me from that pain again." I hugged her, tears in both our eyes, and promised I'd never leave, no matter what she said or did. Jake flew in again for a weekend, and we took Mom to the lake, revisiting the spot from my childhood memory. She skipped a stone, her movements slower but deliberate, and laughed when Jake sank immediately. For a moment, we were just a family, not defined by illness or conflict. As we drove home, Mom squeezed my hand. "I'm sorry," she whispered, the words I'd longed to hear. I didn't need more. Her presence was enough. That night, I wrote in my journal, capturing every detail of the day, the lake's shimmer, Mom's laugh, Jake's terrible aim. I wanted to hold on to these moments, knowing they might fade for her. But for now, we were rebuilding, one memory at a time, proving that love could outlast even the cruelest words. Months passed, and our fragile truce with Mom grew stronger, though not without stumbles. Sarah, the caregiver, became a regular presence, helping with errands and subtly monitoring Mom's health. Mom grumbled at first, calling Sarah that nosy nurse. But soon they were trading gardening tips, and I caught Mom smiling more often. The medication helped too, slowing her memory lapses, though some days she'd forget my name for a moment, her eyes clouding with confusion before recognition returned. Each time, my heart ached, but I held on to Clara's words from the support group, show up. Always. Jake's video calls became a lifeline. He'd share stories from Seattle, exaggerating his tech adventures to make Mom laugh. One night, she asked him to teach her how to use a tablet, a surprising request from a woman who'd once called smartphones the devil's work. Jake mailed her one, preloaded with family photos and simple games. Watching her swipe through pictures of us as kids, her face soft with nostalgia, I felt we were reclaiming pieces of her, even as the disease tried to steal them. But there were dark days too. One morning, Mom called me in tears, convinced I'd stolen her photo albums. I rushed over, finding them under her couch. But her paranoia lingered, a side effect of her condition. Dr. Ellis adjusted her meds, but warned us that emotional outbursts might increase. I leaned on the support group, sharing my fears with people who understood. Clara invited me for coffee, and we talked for hours about balancing love with the pain of watching someone fade. You're giving her dignity, she said, and I clung to that thought. David suggested a family project to anchor Moma's scrapbook of our lives together. We spent weekends at her house, gluing photos, ticket stubs, and handwritten notes into a leather-bound book. Mom loved it, her fingers lingering on a picture of her and Dad on their wedding day. He wasn't all bad, she said softly, a rare admission. I realized the scrapbook wasn't just for her. It was for us, a way to hold on to who she was before the disease took more. One evening, Mom had a lucid moment that stopped me cold. We were washing dishes when she turned to me, her eyes clear. I was wrong to push you away, she said. You're my strength, Emily. Tears streamed down my face as I hugged her. The weight of her earlier words, you're not family anymore, finally dissolving. I told her I loved her, that we'd face this together. She nodded, and for that moment, she was fully my mother again. Jake flew in for Thanksgiving, and we hosted it at Mom's, filling the house with the smell of turkey and cranberry sauce. Sarah joined us, now a friend as much as a caregiver. We laughed, shared stories, and added a new page to the scrapbook, a photo of us around the table. Mom's smile the brightest. But as we cleared the dishes, Mom grew quiet, staring out the window. I'm scared I'll forget this, she whispered. I took her hand, promising we'd keep these memories alive for her. The support group inspired another idea, a memory jar. I bought a glass jar and colorful paper, and we started writing down moments big and small to read when Mom needed a reminder of who we were. Jake wrote about her teaching him to ride a bike. I added the lake trip. Mom contributed too, her handwriting shaky but determined, describing the day I was born. Each slip of paper felt like a defiance against her illness, a way to anchor her to us. As winter approached, I noticed Mom leaning on me more, asking for help with small decisions. It was humbling, seeing her vulnerability, but it also deepened our bond. David and I talked late into the night about the future care facilities, finances, the inevitable. But for now, we focused on the present, on keeping Mom's world warm and full of love. Every step forward felt like a victory, a testament to the family we were rebuilding, one memory at a time. Winter brought a chill to more than just the air. Mom's lucid moments grew rarer, her confusion more frequent. One morning, she called me Laura, her sister's name, and didn't recognize David at all. I smiled through the pain, guiding her back to the present with stories from the memory jar. But each slip felt like losing her a little more. Still, we pressed on, determined to make every day count. Sarah increased her hours, becoming a steady presence, and I was grateful for her patience when Mom's mood swung unpredictably. The scrapbook project became our anchor. We'd spend evenings adding new pages, Mom dictating stories while I wrote, her voice sometimes faltering but always eager. One night, she recalled a camping trip from my childhood, describing how she'd stayed up all night to keep a raccoon from our tent. "You were so brave," I said, and she chuckled, a spark of her old fire returning. Jake mailed new photos from Seattle, including one of him at a tech conference, and Mom insisted we add it, proud despite her earlier anger about his move. Dr. Ellis recommended cognitive exercises, like puzzles and music, to slow Mom's decline. We started playing her old Beatles records, and to my surprise, she sang every word to Hey Jude, her voice strong and clear. Those moments were magic, a reminder that parts of her were still there, waiting to be reached. I began recording her stories on my phone, capturing her laughter, her cadence, knowing I'd treasure these when she couldn't share them anymore. The support group became my refuge. Clara and I grew close, and she shared practical tips how to handle Mom's paranoia, how to stay patient when she repeated herself. One meeting, I broke down, admitting I feared Mom would forget me entirely. The group rallied around me, sharing their own stories of loss and love. "She'll always know you in her heart," an older man said, and I held on to that, even as doubt lingered. Jake's next visit was bittersweet. Mom greeted him warmly, but forgot his name halfway through dinner. He hid his hurt, joking about his forgettable face. But later, we talked in the backyard, the stars above us. "I feel like I'm losing her," he said, his voice cracking. I hugged him, promising we'd face this together. We decided to plan a spring trip, somewhere warm, to give Mom a new memory to hold on to. Jake suggested Florida, where she'd honeymoon with Dad, and I agreed, hoping it would spark joy. Back home, David and I faced new challenges. My job was demanding, and balancing it with Mom's care stretched me thin. David took on more, cooking for Mom when I couldn't, but I saw the strain in his eyes too. One night, I found him researching dementia online, his face etched with worry. "We'll get through this," he said, but I knew he was reassuring himself as much as me. I kissed him, grateful for his unwavering support, and vowed to lean on him more. The memory jar grew fuller, each note a testament to our fight. Mom wrote about teaching me to knit, her hands too shaky now to hold needles. I added a note about her singing Hey Jude, and Sarah contributed one about Mom's gardening tips. Reading them together became a ritual, Mom's face lighting up with each memory, even if she didn't always understand why. One evening, she clutched my hand, her eyes searching mine. "You're my Emily," she said, and I cried, knowing she'd fought to find my name. As spring neared, I planned the Florida trip, booking a beach house near Mom's old honeymoon spot. I imagined us walking the shore, collecting shells, rebuilding what we'd nearly lost. But deep down, I knew the disease would keep challenging us. Still, I held on to the love we'd rediscovered, the family we'd stitched back together. Mom's words from that phone call no longer defined us. Our response to our fight, our love did. Spring arrived, and with it, our Florida trip. The beach house smelled of salt and possibility, its wide windows framing the ocean's endless dance. Mom's eyes widened as we stepped onto the sand, her face catching the sunlight like it had decades ago. Jake carried her chair, and Sarah joined us, her presence now as natural as family. Mom's memory lapses were more frequent, but when she laughed at Jake's clumsy attempt to build a sandcastle, I saw the woman who'd raised us, still there, still fighting. We spent days walking the shore, collecting shells, and reading from the memory jar under the stars. One night, Mom pointed to a constellation, calling it Emily's star, a name she'd made up when I was little. I recorded her voice, soft and sure, knowing these moments were fleeting. Jake shared stories of her honeymoon, pieced together from old letters she'd shown him, and she smiled, her hand in mine, as if the past and present were one. Back home, Mom's condition worsened. She forgot Sarah's name, and some days, She didn't recognize her own house. Dr. Ellis adjusted her meds again, but warned us to prepare for tougher days. I leaned harder on the support group, where Clara's steady presence kept me grounded. "You're giving her a life worth living," she said, and I clung to that, even when Mom's anger flared, accusing me of things I hadn't done. I'd learned to let the words pass, focusing on the love beneath her fear. The scrapbook was nearly full, a tapestry of our lives. We added photos from Florida, Mom's handwriting now just a shaky signature, but her pride in it was fierce. David suggested framing some pages to hang in her room, a visual anchor for her fading memories. We did, and she'd touch them, tracing our faces, as if memorizing us anew. The memory jar overflowed, so we started a second one, each note a small victory against time. One evening, Mom had a rare lucid moment. We were on her porch, watching the sunset, when she turned to me. "I was wrong," she said, her voice steady. "You're my family. Always." Tears fell as I hugged her, the weight of that first phone call finally gone. I told her about the jar, the scrapbook, all we'd done to keep her with us. She listened, her eyes bright, and said, "You've given me more than I deserve." I shook my head, whispering, "You gave me everything first." Jake moved back to Ohio 6 months later, taking a job closer to home. He wanted to be there for Mom, and his presence strengthened us all. We hired a second caregiver to ease Sarah's load, and I cut back my work hours, prioritizing time with Mom. David and I talked about the future, knowing a care facility might come. But for now, we cherished her at home, surrounded by love. A year after that phone call, I stood in Mom's garden, watching her plant tulips with Sarah's help. She hummed "Hey Jude," her hands in the dirt, and I felt a peace I hadn't known was possible. Her words, "You're not family anymore," had nearly broken us. But my response, rooted in love and persistence, had rebuilt us stronger. The disease would take more, but it couldn't take what we'd fought for, a family bound by memories, forgiveness, and an unbreakable will to hold on. As I write this, the memory jar sits on my desk, filled with notes of love and laughter. Mom's still here, still fighting, and so are we. Her illness changed us, but so did our choice to love her through it. We're not perfect, but we're family forever.